there's really not much Georgia needs to prove these days going into the summer months, especially now that fans in Vegas believes that they are the next big dynasty with Nick Saban's retirement. They've won back-to-back national titles in the last 3 years, not to mention they have one of the best overall rosters. And on G-Day, we kind of got more clarification on that. But what were some other key takeaways that we can talk about the Bulldogs going into 2024? Let's go discuss. But if you're new here, welcome on into the channel, people. Make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button, plus leave a comment down below. What is your overall feel of Georgia going into 2024? Are you excited? Do you see flaws? Are they literally the team to beat? Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, SEC faithful, Georgia fans, and college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we're not only on the race to become one of the best YouTube shows talking about our favorite sport, but I want to make sure that we are the #1 college football community. And it goes well past just this blank screen on the internet. It goes all the way over to social media, which you can follow me on at Mr. Cole Thompson. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you see fit. Go ahead and also follow me on Twitter. Slide in the DMs. Send me a message if you want a one-off video with a question that you have at your disposal. And as always, make sure that you continue to make this channel expand as much as humanly possible. So, key takeaways from Georgia's game. There are going to be people that absolutely just hate life in general. Like, do you remember back in the early 2000s, there was a sketch on SNL, and it was called Debbie Downer, and you had Lindsay Lohan in there, and it was Horatio Sands, and Rachel Dratch played the titular Debbie Downer, and everyone just couldn't stop laughing because of why are you able to come up with this much crap? That's the way that Georgia fans who are a little upset about this offense are probably acting right now. Just go ahead and blank them out of your life. You don't need them around. You don't need that negativity. This is a good defense. And I was really impressed with how well this defense was able to establish itself pretty early on in the game when they're only bringing back 55% of their production. And they're losing a lot of key names. Jamon Dumas-Johnson, he transferred now to Kentucky. Not to mention you lose Kamari Lassiter, Javon Bullard, Tyke Smith, and a ton of others to the NFL draft, but it didn't really matter. If you don't know who CJ Allen is, you better start learning his name, because if he's not only going to be a household figure in the SEC, he's going to be one of the best players in college football this year. The same thing goes for Mykel Williams, a former four-star defensive lineman. Now he's getting the opportunity to kind of take over. He had 2 really good pass rushing moves up the middle, and I think that that's a huge staple for what you want in this defense. Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart understand the X's and O's better than I understand my own wife's lingo, so I don't worry about that. It's kind of like one of those things where you wash, rinse, repeat. Alabama every few years would just go through running backs and defensive linemen and DBs, and it would just be like, oh, okay, new name coming in, same results, no problem whatsoever. That's kind of the way I think you have to feel about a team like Georgia going into this year. They're well-equipped, they're well-built, and more importantly, they understand that they have the talent, and it's just about getting that talent established. Offensively, you saw some positives. You did. You know, as much as people want to say, well, Carson Beck struggled at times, he also led the game-tying drive, and it was why the game ended 2020. Like, you got that pass off to Dominic Lovett, and he made some other really good time throws to Oscar Delp, to Kobe Young, to Dylan Bell. You feel good about where a guy like Beck is, and he's got 3 years underneath his belt of either mental reps or physical reps. And last season, he was one bad blunder away in the third quarter against Alabama to where they would have been in the college football playoff. People want to go ahead and give a lot of credit to Jalen Milroe, but you also got to give a lot of credit to that fourth quarter comeback that nearly happened by Carson Beck. And that's where I think you feel really confident going into this year. The other thing, you found a new #1 receiver. As much as we were wondering who's going to be that guy in place of Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, it was the #2 last year, and I did not think that this was going to happen, but Dominic Lovett, he was the highlight guy. He had over 100 yards for the day, 6 catches, averaged around 17.2 yards per play, and this is a guy that has shown he can be a #1. When he was at Missouri, the reason why he went down to Georgia was not to go ahead and dance with the devil, but because he realized I can go ahead and play for a premier program and be a reason why we're winning a national championship. When he was at Missouri, you got to remember, he was one of the best receivers in the SEC. He had over 800 yards. He also had 4 touchdowns. He had 15.2 yards per play. That's what you're getting. But there is still so much talent. And the crazy part is, did I want to see a little bit more from this offense? Did I want to see a little bit more from who could be that #2 in place of what you're losing with Bowers, in place of what you're losing with guys Like Marcus Rosemary, Jack Saint. Yeah, but I'm okay right now. Kobe Young, I know what he can do. I know what I'm going to see from Ra Thomas. I know what I can hopefully expect from London Humphreys going into the year. And maybe it just takes a few games for them to get a rhythm, a repetition, an understanding of Mike Bobo's offense before they really reach new heights. And if this offense does reach new heights and they aren't going up against a top 5 unit like they did in that practice, because that was literally going to be their toughest practice of the year, what more do you really need to say about Georgia? Like going into the year, I believe that Ohio State is the best team on paper. I believe that the most consistent team is Georgia. I believe that Georgia and Ohio State right now should be the favorites to go to the national championship and give us a 3-hour battle in Atlanta that literally is going to be one of the most iconic games in the 2020s. That's what I believe going into this year. And you look at this roster and you feel confident with what Georgia does every offseason with defense. You know that they brought in the right personnel with wide receivers, which I think is a big blessing. You don't need a 1,000-yard pass catcher when you have 6 guys averaging over 575 yards per game. You feel good about the running back room. Trevor Etienne is going to be a difference maker, but can we talk about what you're going to get in a guy like Roderick Robinson? That's a big boy. That is a dude that is ready to run down your throat, basically be a bulldozer and say, move on over, doubters. I am literally burying you 6 feet deep. That is the type of player you're going to get. And here's the thing about Georgia. You know what their identity is. Physicality, shut the hell up, physicality. That's what they do. That's where they're elite. And that's what they want to preach to their players. So anybody out there that believes that right now Georgia is going to take a step back because their offense wasn't completely elite against a number 1 type defense, you're out of your mind. You're literally cherry picking at this point. You want to find the flaws, and there aren't that many. That doesn't mean that Georgia can't lose a game. Everybody is allowed to drop one game, and it happens every year. Now, Georgia is one of the very few that does a good job of playing up to the standard, and when they do lose a game, it's usually to a team that's on their level. But every year, a team is going to drop at least one game that, or at least have some struggles in that game to where you feel like, okay, it doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean that they won't go win the SEC championship, and it doesn't mean that they won't go win the national title. This team is built to not only have another championship added to the halls of Athens, but it is built also to have sustainability well past this year with a lot of young talent that is going to come back in 2025. And this is where the dynasty talk starts. You look at Vegas, I believe that they have Georgia as the number 1 team. I has them as the number 2 team. I don't really care at this point. You can coin flip them in Ohio State if you really want to. We'll do a video one day talking about who needs the championship more. But regardless, you feel good about your offensive consistency. You feel good about your offensive line. You feel really good about the weapons. There's a surplus, a smorgasbord of talent that resides in Athens at the playmaker spot to where you just need somebody to be that dude. It looks like Dominic Lovett. Who's going to be number 2? Who's going to be number 3? Who's going to be number 5 that has that one random game of 150 yards on 6 catches and 2 TDs? Like, that's going to happen this year. And the defense, once again, Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart, they speak defense, and they're really good at being able to translate it. I don't worry about Georgia. G-Day was pretty damn epic for what you expected. And even if you do feel like there's some flaws, I don't really care. You still have Malachi Stark. You still have a really good linebacker in CJ Allen. You still have a ton of talent on that defensive line that's going to be headlined by a dude that probably deserves a lot of respect. Sorry about that. And Michael Williams. I like this team a lot. I feel like that going into the offseason, the only question that you have is who's really going to meet them in Atlanta and what's going to be the final score in favor of the Bulldogs. Make sure you like the video and comment down below. What is your overall thoughts of Georgia going into 2024? What does a winning season look like for the Bulldogs in 2024? Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, college football aficionados, really everybody that enjoys the sport about this channel, because I'm not trying to be the number 1 YouTuber talking about my favorite sport. I would love to do that, but more so, I would love to have the number 1 college football community that goes well past the likes of Twitter. Well past the likes of social media. Speaking of which, follow me over there at Mr. Cole Thompson. And until next time, folks, I am Cole Thompson. See you soon.